In this video we want to talk about structure and talk about the nature of structure. So let's start with what is an organisational structure. Well, according to Cole in 1995, he suggested that an organisational structure is an intangible web of relationships between people, their shared purposes, and the task they set themselves to achieve those purposes. The prime purpose of structure is to achieve an effective balance between the division of tasks and responsibilities on the one hand, and the need to coordinate individuals' efforts and roles on the other. The understanding that members of an organisation inquire about their own structure may be as much based on unwritten evidence and informal agreements as on any formal statement of rules, procedures and role descriptions. So according to Cole, the nature of structure, or the purpose of structure, is to bring organisation and to divide up tasks and allocate responsibilities within organisations. So therefore, without structure, it would be a very amorphous collection of resources, perhaps pulling against each other, not very well coordinated, and certainly not very efficient. It's organisation that brings almost linearity and efficiency and productivity to the organisation. It brings a sense of control to the organisation. The Open University suggests that organisation structure is the extent to which, and the ways in which, organisation members are constrained and controlled by the organisation and the distribution of activities and responsibilities and the organisational procedures and regulations. Similar to Cole, in the sense that organisation is seen as important in bringing about consistency, bringing about a logic, organising and marshalling resources effectively, channeling the resources towards the achievement of some objective. So organisation is important. Without organisation, the whole structure of the institution would be, in a sense, confused, be at cross purpose. There would be duplication of effort and wasteful activities. It needs a clear picture and it needs consistency. Different organisations adopt different methods of structures depending on their goals and objectives and the culture in which the organisation operates. Well, it may be a small family business, for example. Small businesses tend to have a different culture, a different modus operandi. Small businesses, the owner knows the workers, he knows their backgrounds, it's a family business, it's a much more intimate working environment. Larger organisations are much more formalistic with written directions and specifications of organisational charts and areas of responsibility. So the types of structure depend on the type of organisation. Adopting a structure to an organisation allows responsibility and activities and processes to be allocated to different departments and employees. Well, that's overlapping with what I said earlier in terms of the efficiency and the throughput of the organisation. To avoid wastage and duplication errors and efforts and bringing about bad working practices and allowing them to persist and become part of the routine of the business. To avoid all of this, a clear structure is important, with clear delineation of who's responsible and with metrics perhaps to measure the efficiency of the organisation and the sub parts of the organisation, the subgroupings within the organisation, to look at their efficiencies and look at their contributions. So it's accountability and it's efficiency. It's ensuring consistency throughout, and it also enables control. The management know exactly who's in charge of what functions, what departments, and how departments link to each other, and the whole communication system within the organisation can be worked out accordingly. A well-planned structure will determine an organisation's success. The aim of an organisation is to increase efficiency and profitability. So a well-planned structure is an important part of achieving efficiency and bringing about the success of the business. If the structure is hidden or confused or not well thought out, then it's almost inevitable there will be inefficiency. It's almost inevitable that there will be duplication of effort, wastage, perhaps unnecessary investment in parts of the organisation, and so on. So a clear structure is a necessary prerequisite for an efficient organisation. Organisational structure gives guidance on how tasks in an organisation are divided up and coordinated through the workforce. Well, the organisation should work out who's doing what tasks need to be performed, where are the tasks performed, and who is responsible for the completion of those tasks. Without this, there could not be effective division of labour in the company. Some of the management or employees would attempt to do everything perhaps themselves, or it would in a sense degenerate into a very primitive form of production where workers would take responsibility on themselves perhaps to see through the production of items from start to finish, which would be counter to the principle of division of labour. Far better for the workers to work on projects, partially work on the project, and then send it to the next stage where someone else uses their expertise and their efficiency to complete the next task, and so on through the system. So this can only happen if there is structure, and the structure is enforced by the company, and the structure itself is well thought out. There are two requirements that establish a structure: developing individual tasks through the division of labour, which then leads, of course, to specialisation. So specialisation enables the workers to produce more. It may, if it's carried too far, be a demotivating factor for the workers if they're working on very small tasks repetitively. But if that is managed, there are still considerable advantages to be had from the division of labour. So that's important. Coordination of these tasks and activities to allow an organisation to achieve their full potential. So structure needs coordination. It needs definition. It needs to be worked out in a logical fashion, with each successive process following the previous one in logical order until the product is completed. So, organisation leads to coordination of the business, or within the business, which leads to efficiency. And coordination, of course, will require informal communication. It's important that the line managers and the departmental managers and the workforce communicate and are able to communicate efficiently and with speed. We're able to talk to each other to sort out issues. So a good informal communication system should be in place. And this allows, of course, the sharing of information, the sharing of comments about the workflow, issues that are arising, problems, sorting out the problems. It's a very efficient, fast, perhaps face-to-face form of informal communications. So it's important that, certainly it's the case, that within teamwork informal communications be put in place. It's important within teams that they're able to communicate freely and efficiently with each other. Otherwise, teamwork would be slowed down if they were waiting for formal responses to formal questions and communications. So informal communications is very important. And of course, informal communication will be media rich. They can show pictures and drawings and reproduce sounds, and they may even record some basic videos to show how a machine's working, or what happened just before a machine broke down. It's amenable to media richness, be able to demonstrate clearly an issue by drawing or by explanation, by pointing, by indicating where something has happened, and explaining it perhaps in different terminology, and being questioned and responding to the question. So it's a much richer form of communications. The formal hierarchy, well, large firms tend to adopt this type of coordination. So large companies, they issue formal directives to departments, and then the department moves on to implement those orders, those requests. Of course, within the department may use informal communications, and that could be part of the way in which the structure is able to maintain itself. That the larger organization issues formal directions to departments, to departmental heads of department or departmental directors, and they in turn formally communicate this to perhaps the line managers. But the line managers are then able to deal with the situation more informally. They're able to explain to the workers what exactly is required, so the formal is being transferred or transmuted into informal in order to get the job done. Of course, the formal hierarchy is costly and a very slow process. It means that directions from the top of the organization have to be well thought out, they have to be proofread, various drafts, they have to be discussed, and then they're disseminated throughout the organization as required. But you can see it's a costly and very slow process. And there's also constant supervision of a member of staff who's responsible for this. The formal communication will have to be programmed, it'll have to be monitored, it'll have to ensure consistency with previous directions, it'll have to fit in with the corporate strategy. It's a much more elaborate form of communications. The coordination, part of that coordination, which could be formal or informal, as I said earlier, but part of the coordination could lead to standardization. And that's the idea, that the processes should be standardized, because that's how efficiency can be brought about. So training is provided to acquire the new skills, and the new skills will be in line perhaps with the technical requirements of the machinery and of the capital that's being used in that particular circumstance or in that particular situation. So standardization will lead to greater output. Formal instructions have to be given and clear goals and outputs explained. To get standardization, then not just adequate training, but formal instructions. This must be completed before that. And in a sense, these instructions should be thoroughly understood before the operator undertakes this whole process of standardization. And that's it. That's what we're going to deal with in this short class on structure, and talking about the importance of structure, and later on talking about the communications system and standardization and coordination issues that organizations require, and how this bolsters up and relates to structure. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.